In South Sudan, refugees are arriving daily at a camp in Yida, Unity State, after fleeing fighting in Sudan's southern Kordofan state. Daniel Sullivan of United to End Genocide recently returned from the region. I spoke with him about what he witnessed there.
Since June, the Nuba Mountains has been under attack by the government of Sudan. The Sudanese armed forces are bombing indiscriminately on a near daily basis. There also has, because of fighting, there's also not been a chance to plant crops, and there's been a deliberate campaign of blocking any kind of international humanitarian aid to go into the area.
One would have thought that now that Southern Sudan is a nation of its own, that there would have been a kind of a security mechanism at the border area to protect its own citizens. What did you find there? What were you told is happening at the area where citizens are running from?
Well, there certainly is a strong Sudanese, South Sudan armed presence along the border. So these people are coming from an area that's still in the north into the refugee camps. And there have been cases where the Sudanese armed forces have come across the border into the south. So there's a big risk of that escalating into a return to civil war, or a return to war between the north and the south, now that the south is its own independent nation.
Now, you were in the camps, you spoke with people there. First, describe the conditions that you witnessed there.
Well, the camp it's this sprawling area. You know, originally there were 300 to 600 local people living there. Now there's 28,000 and growing every day. The conditions aren't the worst kind of things you can imagine. There isn't enough food every day, but everyone we spoke to told us it's a lot better in the camps themselves than it is staying in the Nuba Mountains, where a lot of people are staying in caves because they're seeking protection from this bombing that goes on. Another big thing about the camps that you notice when you're walking around is there are these small holes about 3-4 feet deep by 3-4 feet wide, dug all over the place, and those are mini bomb shelters. The camp itself was bombed in November. There were 5 bombs dropped, and one of them landed outside of a school that was in session, luckily did not explode. So there's this sense of fear within the camp that could happen again, and not quite enough food to go around.
Now, when you look at people in the camps, they usually would look like they're desperate people. Some are feeble, women, children. Why are they being bombed?
It's a very good question, but it's a pattern that's happened for a long time under the Sudanese armed forces and President Omar al-Bashir, who's already wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide for what he did in Darfur. It's this sort of terror campaign that he's following. Even today, every other day there's Antonov bombers that are heard over the camp. So it's just a continual campaign there. And as you said, it's mostly women and children. The other aspect of the camp that was really striking was just little barefoot, tiny footprints all over the place. About 74% of the camp is under the age of 18. And there's about over 3,000 kids there that they call unaccompanied minors, basically living in the camps without their parents.
What are you proposing? What is your organization, for example, proposing that should be done by the U.S., by the international community?
The first thing you need right away is to get that humanitarian access in. So the U.S. government has done a good job of recently of talking to other countries and trying to add diplomatic pressure. But that diplomatic pressure has not moved the government in Khartoum. So we're looking at a situation where people are going to be dying in large numbers. So it's time to look at alternative methods for getting food in there. And that can involve pre-positioning food near the borders and preparing ways to get airdrops in, or find ways that if Khartoum says we're not going to allow any food in, we can't allow them to use that as a weapon of war. So that's the most immediate thing, but we can't forget the core problem, and not only in South Kordofan and Blue Nile, but also continuing in Darfur and other parts of Sudan, is the government of Sudan. It's Omar al-Bashir, this wanted war criminal. Ultimately, we need to have consequences for what he's doing.
Well, that was Daniel Sullivan, Director of Policy and Government Relations at United to End Genocide.